Let's talk about dash. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. But let's talk about DAS, Direct Adaptive Steering, otherwise known as steer-by-wire. It's the first, Infiniti has the first production car with steer-by-wire in it. Apparently, the development goes back 10 years. So when the 0203 G35 came out, they were already thinking about DAS. And Infiniti says they have some hundreds of thousands of miles of testing, and they had a whole lot of user input to get the system to where they felt they could release it in 2014. And when they released it in 2014, the reviews weren't that favorable. It was pretty much a love-hate relationship with it. And for those 2 years, honestly, I think they just had it in beta still, and they needed to get it out in the real world. So for 2016, they released the second revision. And so generation 2 of DAS. And that's what I'm mainly going to focus on for this video. I did drive a car with the first generation of DAS on it, and I shared some of the same sentiments. And where you was kind of, are you driving or is the car driving? Is this a dance, a partnership? I mean, you couldn't really tell. That ambiguousness of steering is what got most people to not like DAS. But I can say for the second generation, they have corrected that. When I first test drove my car, I didn't know it had DAS. I didn't know. And I kind of wish most people would test drive a DAS car, but not knowing that is DAS. Then that will help you form your opinion better. Because I really didn't know until I finally looked at the window sticker and saw that it had DAS. I was surprised. So it's way better than what it was when I drove it in 2015. I knew something was up immediately driving that car in 2015. So how does DAS work? So what you have going on is you have 3 computers in parallel looking at the same data as like a triple redundancy. And then you have 2 motors or a motor on each wheel. And then you have a sensor that kind of senses the, what vibrations are happening at the wheel. And then it feeds that up to the steering wheel, which recreates vibrations. And then you actually have a backup steering column that's sitting on a clutch. So as long as there's power, the clutch is disengaged. And then if for some reason you don't have power, it snaps shut and you get your steering. So that's the fail safe. So you never really have to worry about not having what's called a total steering loss. That should never happen. And then when you start the car, sometimes when you start the car, you can feel it happen. You feel that the clutch released. It's not every time, but sometimes you can feel that. But the whole point of DAS is to take out certain vibrations, certain wandering that will happen in the steering wheel, the mechanical system, or your tires following a rut. So the wheel kind of moves, you go over a bump, the wheel kind of moves. Trying to take out those type of excess steering corrections that kind of fatigue you when you drive. So, and it does a very good job of that. It just tracks straight and the steering wheel stays straight, and you don't feel like you got to make all these little small corrections all the time while you're driving. You don't really have to do that. You can almost keep one hand on the steering wheel and just hold it there the car's gonna go straight. And then if it has a computer that makes a correction 1,000 times a second, so any little imperfection in the road that might usually move the steering wheel, it doesn't do anything. But they still let you, it's still the texture of the road is still fed back to you. You just don't get the little jolts and bumps that you would usually feel in the steering wheel are gone. And at first, you know, it feels sterile, you know, at first, because you're like, what the heck? Because, you know, you're used to just all these vibrations coming through the wheel, and it doesn't happen anymore. But then you start to realize that the only thing you still know the texture of the road. So not feeling all those vibrations it's like a driver relief is the best way I can put it. So instead of your hand, you know, it's not there no more. You got more of a relaxed drive. And from driving it with DAS for a year, and then whenever I get into a car that doesn't have DAS now, I immediately notice how much more I'm correcting the steering wheel, how if, you know, the car might follow a rut in the road, and I immediately notice that now. And it's almost like, dang, I wish I could get back in my car with my steering. And it's weird to say that especially coming from me, you know, I like to do the sportier driving and autocrossing and track, and it's just weird to say that. But it's definitely better. If you had to pick from the regular, what they call it, EPS versus DAS, I would always get DAS. It's just much better than that system. All right, now from a performance standpoint. So, as you know, I took this car to a couple of autocrosses and ran it with DAS. First thing you notice with DAS is the steering is super accurate and precise. You can place the car exactly where you want, and it's very direct feeling. So you make that movement in the steering wheel, that movement happens on the car. You want to place it, you know, I'm probably going to show a little bit of video. You want to place it to hit an apex. You just turn the wheel and it hits the apex. But where you start to see it actually come apart in the performance type driving is that it loads up the steering wheel the same way that it would be in a mechanical thing. So you getting in a turn, you can feel that the tires are gripping and it's loaded up, loaded up, loaded up. But when the tires lose grip in a mechanical system, the steering will go light, and you kind of, oh, okay, I'm at, you at the limit of adhesion of the tires. But on DAS, it just stays loaded up. And so you'll understeer, and you won't 100% know that you understeered until your butt tells you, oh, okay, the car is not rotating anymore. So that's kind of a drawback of it. So at the limit, if you're driving at the limit all the time, you would want a mechanical system. If you want that at the limit feel to know that, okay, I'm at the edge of the tires and my steering wheel is starting to go light, I know I'm at the edge. But anything 8 tenths, 9 tenths, where you are driving within the limit of your tire's grip, I don't know if a mechanical rack can beat DAS. I don't know. Like, you just, where you go is where you place. You ain't got to worry about nothing overheating. You ain't got to worry about boiling your power steering fluid. None of that's going to happen. The maintenance is gone off of it. I mean, it's just going to react the same way every time. And at least with the second generation that I have, at least with the second generation, all the auto crosses I've done with it, it's predictable at the same time. I loved it. I'm actually surprised to even say this. All right, I have here Infiniti's brochure for DAS, and I'm gonna show y'all this on the screen, and I'm gonna go through here and I'm gonna kind of give you my opinion if it lives up to these claims. So world's first, well, I don't know of any other that came out in 2013 but Infiniti, so yeah. No mechanical linkage. There's a backup mechanical leakage, but in general, driving, as long as there's no error, you know, there's no mechanical linkage. And instantaneous delivery. Yes, like what you do, what you steer is what you get. It's very, very precise and accurate. And that's my favorite part about it. Now, the lateral G part says steering effort gradually increases with speed and lateral G, similar to conventional steering. And the key word is similar, not the same. So the steering wheel does load up, but what it doesn't do is unload when you reach your limit of grip. And that's where anybody who's like for real into, you know, driving 10 out of 10s on a track or something, you might not like that. Well, you won't like that because you won't know when you're on the edge of grip until your butt tells you that you're understeering. So you kind of gotta relearn how to detect understeer. So this is where I think Infiniti I think they could have actually done this. They could have unloaded the car when grip goes away. All they will have to do is look at your steering angle sensor and your predicted, you know, your actual trajectory versus your predicted trajectory based on your steering angle sensor. That's all they would have to do. And then whenever those don't match, you start unloading the steering wheel and making it go a little bit lighter as your trajectory gets more and more off. And I don't know why they didn't do that. It would have been basically the same as a conventional setup. It's probably some reason why they didn't do that, or you know, this car is not necessarily a track car. So I mean, anything 9/10 or below and your tires are gripping, this will be the most accurate and precise steering that you're going to use. They're saying they're beating convention, and it says unaffected by the kickbacks and force movements. That is very true. So while some people will say, oh, it's not giving you enough feedback, it actually does. At least the 2016 and up second generation. It gives you, you know, the texture of the road. You can tell if the road is bumpy, if it's smooth. I mean, if you roll over something, maybe you're not gonna feel a penny, but you're gonna at least feel a $50 or a silver dollar. You know, you know that you ran over something. And it does a good job of, like, so instead of the steering following a rut, it just stays straight. And like I said before, the fatigue is there's no fatigue driving long distance with those constant minor corrections that you would usually have to do in a mechanical setup. And they're calling it confidence inspiring. Once again, I will agree with that because it's so precise and accurate once again that you feel like you know the car is going to go there, and where you place it is where it goes, at least up to the limit of your tire's grip. And then, you know, they have personalized settings. And yes, you can set the weight of the steering wheel, and then you can set how quick the steering wheel reacts off center. And as I spoke before, less effort. I mean, especially, yeah, they mentioned standard mode. Especially in standard mode, the car is just effortless to drive. When you get into another car, you immediately notice how much work it is to drive in a car with a mechanical versus that one. You get spoiled, honestly. Driving pleasure, yes, and once again, like I said, because it's so accurate and precise, at least up, like I gotta keep saying, up to the tire's grip level, it's so accurate and precise that, yeah, you get a little more excitement out of driving because the car is doing what you expect. And when you feel like you connected with the car, it's going to be more pleasurable experience. And then the quicker steering, that is so true, especially when you put the car in Sport Plus. And so in Sport Plus, I showed this in another video, but kind of sorta, but I didn't highlight it. But in Sport Plus, it has a special mode for the dash, and it's called the Tour setting. And it makes the steering wheel super quick. I mean, I want to say it's 2 turns, lock to lock, maybe. It might be maybe 2.5 to 2 turns, lock to lock, and it's lightning fast. But it's like it sets it to like 1 ratio, and it's just lightning fast. Like it's pretty cool to drive that on. That's how I drive it on autocross, and it's like locks the ratio and makes it real fast. So what you do is exactly what you get, and it's no extra intervention or something, and it just feels good. So in general, they live up to this, and I have to give Dash a thumbs up. Like I'm still surprised that I'm even saying this, but this system is pretty dang good. So don't be if you get a DAS car, especially if it's 2016 and up, don't be afraid of it. Go test drive it. Go test drive it. Push it a little bit and see what it feels like. Drive down the highway straight and watch how effortless it is. Just daily driving to work is effortless. And then when I want to for real do something, just click it up in the Sport Plus and get that locked ratio, and the car's super fun. So it's like the best of both worlds with it being computer controlled like that. And that's kind of where this stuff is going. And when you more computer control something, you can customize it more for the individual driver, and they're allowing you to do that here. So if you don't like the Sport Plus setting, you can go and pick one of those other modes, and set your weight and your response to what you like. A little side note. So if you've driven a 2007 G35 sedan, they have, to me, one of the better racks for any of the Infinitis. And if you set the mode, the steering weight, the Sport, and then the response to the middle section, it's different depending on the year. I think they call it quick or quickest or standard or something like that on the 18s. But on the 18s and up, but on the 17s and down, it's like dynamic plus and standard. So if you set both of them to the middle section, set the driver weight to Sport and the steering response to quick or dynamic, it feels exactly like a 2007 G35S sedan, and one of the best, steering racks that Infiniti made. And I've driven them all, and that was one of the best ones. And so that's what I'm saying. You can just mimic whatever steering rack you get. Eventually, you might have little programs where, and this is later on in cars, where you can say, I want the car to feel like a Porsche. I want the car to feel like a Ferrari. And you just load it up in there, and then the steering rack will mimic it. So this is where it's going, and that's the point of DAS. And well, I hope y'all learned something about DAS. Till next time.